When we talk about the story of Abraham, his wife Sarah often gets cast as a supporting character. She's famous for waiting a lifetime for a child. But what if she wasn't just on the sidelines? In this explainer, we're going to dig into a view of Sarah as a powerful guardian with a story that's way more dynamic than you might remember. So when you picture Sarah, what comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's this image of a patient wife, kind of living in the shadow of her famous husband. We remember her for being old, for waiting, and for that one time she laughed at a promise that seemed totally impossible. She can feel like a pretty passive figure, just along for the ride. But if you take a closer look at the text, a completely different portrait emerges, a much richer, more powerful one. It suggests that Sarah wasn't a supporting character at all. She was an absolutely essential partner, a co-heir, and, maybe most importantly, a fierce guardian of the divine promise that was made to both of them. To really get a handle on Sarah's role, we have to go right back to the beginning. We need to re-examine how she's framed from the get-go, not as an accessory to the main guy, but as a central figure in the whole covenant.
Okay, and this starts by tackling a pretty common and often misunderstood idea of submission. The concept we're looking at here isn't about one person just, disappearing or yielding to another. Think of it more like a partnership. It's about two people aligning themselves to the same, shared, higher purpose, the covenant. They're on the same team, moving in the same direction.
So how do we actually see this partnership in the text? Well, there's this one huge event that's super easy to gloss over, but it actually makes their joint status crystal clear. And this is a really crucial point. The promise of a great nation wasn't just a vague thing given to Abraham. Right from the start, it's made incredibly clear that the covenant line would pass specifically through the son born to Sarah. She was never an afterthought. She was the designated channel for the whole promise. And check this out. This just illustrates their joint status perfectly. When God elevates their whole mission, he doesn't just rename Abram to Abram. He also renames Sarai to Sarah. See that? They're both lifted up. Both are given new names. Both are marked as active participants. It's a shared promotion for a shared mission. So if they're partners, what kind of partner was Sarah supposed to be? Well, the answer is hiding in a single, crucial Hebrew word that totally redefines her role. We've all heard the woman described as a helper, right? But what does that word actually mean? Does it mean a subordinate, an assistant? Or is it something else entirely? The original Hebrew term is ezer kenegdo, and wow, its meaning is profound. This doesn't mean a lesser assistant. It means a strength that corresponds to another, or one that stands face to face with another. It implies a powerful equal, a necessary counterpart. And this is where it gets really interesting. To understand the weight of this word, ezer, you have to see where else it's used in the text. It's used to describe God himself as Israel's rescuer. It's used for powerful military allies that show up to save the day. This is not a word for a subordinate. It's a word of immense strength, of rescue, and of protection. Okay, so if Sarah is this powerful ezer, this corresponding strength, do we ever see it in action? Oh, absolutely. The story with Hagar and Ishmael gives us the clearest and most compelling example. So in the story, you've got all this tension brewing in the family, but Sarah's insight goes way deeper. She doesn't just see a family squabble. She sees Ishmael's behavior as a direct threat to the integrity of the promise that was supposed to come through her son, Isaac. It was a threat that Abraham, in his love for his firstborn son, just couldn't see. And so what does she do? She acts, she speaks up and demands that Hagar and Ishmael be sent away. Now, it's easy to read this as just jealousy, but in the framework of the ezer, she's fulfilling her role as a protector. Her action isn't meant to be disruptive, it's meant to be protective, to guard the future of the covenant. And here is the absolute kicker. How does God respond? He doesn't scold Sarah, he does the opposite. He completely validates her insight, telling a very distressed Abraham, listen to whatever Sarah tells you. I mean, that's an incredible divine stamp of approval. It confirms her voice was not only right, but it was essential. So, when we pull all these threads together, what is the final picture of Sarah that we're left with? We're left with a picture of Sarah that is not a silent, passive assistant. Instead, she's a discerning strength. She's a true covenant partner whose role as an ezer was to stand face to face with Abraham and guard their shared promise with wisdom and with power. So, what are the big takeaways here? Well, first, Sarah was a co heir in this whole thing right from the very beginning. Second, that word ezer means a powerful protector, not a passive helper. And finally, a true partnership, one that's built on a mission, requires a discerning voice, even a challenging one, to keep the whole thing on track. And that kind of leaves us with one final question to think about. If this guardian role, this ezer role, is about corresponding strength and protective discernment, how does that shift our own ideas about what strength and support and even leadership really look like inside of any powerful partnership today?